everybody, good morning. Welcome to our morning meetings with our ambassadors. We're going to get started in just a second with our ambassador Kingsnake Elvis. I didn't want to have him on frame just in case anyone in here is freaked out by snakes. We completely understand, but they are wonderful ambassadors for their species. So we're really excited to bring you Elvis, our Kingsnake ambassador. He is very sweet. He's been with us for a long time. So if you are here, please let us know. Leave a comment and with your name and where you're from, and we will get right to saying hello to you. Also, leave any questions about the ambassadors that about Elvis, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. So we are introducing you guys to Elvis today. Hello, Elvis. Hi. Elvis is our California Kingsnake ambassador. California Kingsnakes are obviously not from around here. They're from California. And we actually have Elvis because he used to be a pet. He was a classroom pet for many years. And unfortunately, he could not stay with his owner and was given to us, was surrendered to us. So similar to like if you adopt a dog at a shelter, that's what kind of happened to Elvis. Hi, Elvis. What are you doing? Elvis is a little bit older of a gentleman. He's around 18, 19 years old. So we're not exactly sure. He was a classroom pet for about 10 years. But beyond that, we're not completely sure. He's a rescue. So he has been with us for quite some time. He's been with us for 13 years. So we're very lucky. He is very, very sweet. He is getting up there, but he's very sweet. So let's see who is chimed in here, and I'll say hello. Hi, Caitlin. Good morning. Hi, Kendra and River in Freedom. Hello. Let's see. Liam and Luke. Hello. Good morning. Good morning from Joe. Hello. I also had a special request to give a shout out to Evan. Evan is a sweet little guy who loves our snake ambassadors. So good morning, Evan. Hello. I hope you get to see this later. Definitely tune in and let us know that you're here. I love being able to interact with you guys. Good morning. Oh my goodness. We dropped the phone. But thank you guys so much. Wow, all the way from South Carolina. That's awesome. Annabelle from Vermont. That's so cool. I really love how we've been able to reach people from all over the country. We even had someone tuning in from Norway on one of these. So we're so excited. Hi, Xander. Good morning. This is our beautiful Kingsnake ambassador who's getting a little bit antsy with me. Good morning, Ryan. Hello. He is a little bit long, you can see. He's actually about 5.5 feet long. He is, a little bit longer than you might expect to see a kingsnake in the wild. They do exist. Good morning, Michelle. It's your friend. It's your buddy, Elvis. They are a little bit shorter in the wild. They're usually only around 3.5 to 4.5 feet. But this guy was actually bred in captivity. So kingsnakes are among one of the most commonly sold pet trade snakes out there because they are very calm, very, chill, not prone to biting too much. And they live, a decent amount of time, but they don't get too big and they don't live excessively long lifespans. They can live to be 20 to 30 years old in captivity still, but that's pretty good for a snake. We have two snake ambassadors here at the center. We have Elvis here, who doesn't get to do as much as Zipper, our famous friend. Zipper has been with us for a long, long time as well, and is one of our classroom favorites. He's very sweet, very gentle. Elvis here is a little bit more snaky. He likes to move around. He likes to slither more. So people tend to get a little bit more nervous about Elvis than they do about Zipper. But he's still wonderful. And he's actually just kind of waking up for the springtime. So he's been a little bit more active lately, which is fun. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Amanda. Good morning to Mark. Thank you so much to Melissa for donating. We do have a donate button. All of the proceeds from these morning meetings go directly to support the care of our ambassadors and our patients. So we have quite a few patients now. We got a lot of admissions yesterday. We are kind of dealing with the crush of baby season with only like 3 or 4 people here, so that's kind of fun. But we are doing well, and all of your support is very, very appreciated because all those baby squirrels and all of our ambassadors do need to eat. And your support goes to help to feed them. So Mr. Elvis here, I saw a question about what he eats. He would eat mice with us in captivity. They're the easiest thing for us to come by. But in the wild, these guys are actually called king snakes because they eat other snakes. They're kind of like the king of the snakes. And that is really interesting because where they are actually not the only type of snake around. So where we are in Maine, we really only have constrictor snakes. We don't have any sort of venomous snakes in our area. You might, if you went into Massachusetts, see timber rattlesnakes, which are more and more common the more south you go. But up here in Maine, we don't see those guys. So really all we have are constrictors up here. But in California, where he is native, and especially out in the Southwest, there are lots and lots of species of rattlesnakes out there. And venomous snakes that these guys will actually eat. So a lot of people that don't like snakes should like king snakes because they actually do hunt and kill other species of snakes, which is especially amazing if you think about the fact that they have to not only catch and kill a snake. Snakes are very fast, very slippery, very slithery, and can easily get away. And they also require less oxygen than a lot of mammals. So when we think about a constrictor and their form of killing their prey, they're going to wrap around their prey and slowly basically suffocate them, which isn't too fun to think about. But reptile needs so much less oxygen that the king snake has actually been found to have the strongest constriction of any type of snake for his body size, and that's because he needs to wrap so tightly around other species of snakes to kill them. He also would be able to, in the wild, withstand some amount of venom. So whatever venom that rattlesnake had produced and had in its body wouldn't kill Elvis here. It wouldn't kill a king snake, which is amazing. So they're a little bit immune to venom. They're not completely immune to it. If they got a lot of it, it would definitely kill them. But they are immune to kind of a normal amount of venom, which is just so cool. These guys have evolved to do some amazing work. Hello, Geffen from Dover. Where are you going, buddy? Hello, Amanda. Thank you for tuning in. We answered that question. Yes, Brendan, age 10, has clued us into a great fact. So you're seeing Elvis use his tongue quite a bit. He's flicking his tongue around, and he is actually smelling with that tongue. The really cool thing that snakes can do is actually pick up on scent that is dissolved in water. So they can smell when it's really, really humid or they're in water. They can actually smell and like the scent in the water. So they are sticking their little tongue out. You can see he doesn't really love it when I do that, so we'll let him chill up there. But he can stick his little tongue out into the air, pick up on the chemicals and the different scents that are in the air, and that will actually clue him into what is happening around him, who is around him. If there's a prey animal, he knows the scent of his handlers. He knows, the scent of a mouse. So he can smell with his little tongue. And what's really cool is that he'll stick his tongue out, pick up scents, and then bring his tongue back into his mouth, and a little organ on the roof of his mouth called the Jacobson's organ will actually analyze all those different scents and tell him what they are. So it's similar to the way that our brain works, our scent works. Our nose is picking up scent particles, and our brain, the part of our brain that detects scent, is analyzing those particles and telling us what we're smelling. So it's kind of similar. It's just done by a different part of the body. And horses actually have the same organ at the roof of their mouth. So if you've ever seen a horse going like sucking air in through their mouth, it's the same organ. It's pretty cool. So yes, he is using his tongue to smell, Brendan. Great fact. Hi, Geffen. I'm so glad to hear you're with us. Hazel and Eloise from South Portland. Good morning, everybody. Oh, this is a great question. So we have a viewer who is interested in the field of wildlife conservation and rehabilitation, and is asking what jobs would be great for them. So we actually here at the center are all some kind of biologists. So we have degrees here in either biology or conservation or ecology, things like that, or zoology. So those are all great undergraduate degrees to go into. But you can also study wildlife conservation and management. UNH has a great school for that. UVM, where I went, has a great program for that. So depending on where you're looking, I would look for those programs. And then once you are out there in the field, there are a lot of different state organizations that you can get involved in. The Maine state biologists have some great opportunities too. A lot of rangers will be involved in that, so that's a great question. And we at the center are practicing rehabilitation, which is not something that until very recently you could get into like a school program for, but it is becoming more and more academic, which is really exciting. So it is something that you might be able to go into school for in the next 10 years, which would be really cool. So Elvis here. Hi, Elvis. Hello. Good boy. You can see Elvis is obviously black and white, and he's from California, so that's why we called him Elvis. And he has these really nice bands along his body. And this is a pretty typical coloring for our kingsnakes, but because they are a pet trade snake and they've been bred in captivity for the purposes of selling in the pet trade, you can actually see these guys in a lot of different color variations that might not exist in the wild. The wild ones will almost always be black and white or cream and brown, something like this. But in captivity, they've bred them to be albino or colored in different ways. So there are a lot of different color variations you can find. Elvis here is a snake, and snakes have something really cool that they do. They will shed their skin. So a lot of reptiles will do this. They will molt, that's what we call it. And snakes actually are doing that. And it's kind of crazy to think about the fact that they have to basically shed a tube off of their body of all of their skin without having any arms to help them, without having, hands to help pick it off. So this guy, when he sheds, is going to start at the head and kind of rub his face on things, up against anything rough in his enclosure. He'll kind of work the shed off, and then it'll slowly come off inside out along his body until it's all the way off. And that's super interesting. We actually have a shed here that we've preserved of Elvis's, and the bands on Elvis's scales are still visible in the shed. So I'll show you guys kind of what I mean. So this here, let's flip the you guys. This here is one of Elvis's sheds, and you can see it's super long. And what's really cool is his shed even still has the little scales that are on his eyeballs in there. So they have scales that cover their eyes, and they will shed those as well. So it's really cool. And then what's holding it down over here on the end is a snake skeleton. This is a garter snake skeleton. And a lot of people assume that snakes don't have bones because they are so wiggly and, slithery, but they actually have a lot of bones. They have a lot more bones than we have. And each tiny little vertebrae that goes down their back has little ribs that come off of it, and the muscles in between those ribs actually help them to do the slithering. So when they are slithering back and forth, it's actually little muscles in between the ribs of their body that are helping them to slither. Good morning, Lori. Hello. Welcome. Yeah, definitely. If you guys are here and have any questions, let me know. Tune in and write your name down there and where you're from. We'd love to say hi. We're really loving being able to connect with you guys this way. It's really nice. And again, there is a donate button down below. Thank you so much for donating. We really appreciate it, and Elvis appreciates it. So in captivity, Elvis does eat mice. In the wild, he would eat other species of snakes along with small rodents. They eat a variety of things. But in captivity, he does eat mice. And Elvis is a little bit up there in years, and for many years was eating live mice. So we would have to like go to the pet store and buy a mouse, and he would have to kill it. And this is often something that snake owners have to do because many snakes will not recognize dead mice as prey because they don't smell right, they're not warm enough. These guys can actually see heat, so they can see into the into kind of the heat spectrum. So when something is warm and moving around, they can see that. So if a mouse isn't warm enough, they won't necessarily recognize it as food, which is really hard. But now, because he is older, you know, he's at least 19, because he is older and is a little bit less agile, he started to get really klutzy with his mice. He started to really not be able to pounce on them as well, to wrap around them as well. And we were worried that he would either not successfully kill the mice or that the mice might hurt him, which does happen. A lot of pet owners, you know, don't realize that the mouse could do damage, but they are rodents and they have those sharp rodent teeth. And so that's why you never want to leave a snake alone with a mouse unsupervised, because that mouse could do some damage. So we switched Elvis over to dead mice, and it's actually a funny process. We do have to kind of heat that mouse up a little bit to get him to notice it. Sometimes we have to wiggle it around with, you know, with our hands, but because he is older, it is the safest option for him, because he is not so quick and good at pouncing anymore. He's also rather chubby, which is something that you don't think about snakes as being able to get chubby, but we realize this. They can get actually fat deposits built up around them, and when they roll up, if they start to get creases in the rolls, it's kind of just like fat rolls. So we actually have found that as he gets older, it's tricky to keep him from getting too large, which is really interesting to think that snakes can go through that, but he does. Kelly Marie would like to know where he was adopted from. He was a classroom pet for many years of a local teacher, so I'm not sure exactly who, but it was somebody in our area who reached out to us about 13 years ago, and we adopted him from there. And the reason that we have non-native snake species as ambassadors is because we only have like 5 species of snakes in Maine, and they are, for the most part, very active, very skittish, and it is very, very hard to work with a wild snake. They are not really going to be the type of animal that you would want to bring on a program or present with. It would be very challenging to ever get them to be calm and still and not stressed when they're in front of people. Most of the snakes that we have in our area are pretty small, so garter snakes, little green snakes, and they're used to being a prey item. They're used to being worried about predators, so they are a little bit more high-strung. There is a species of snake that we do have called the milk snake, who does have a captive bred counterpart, so we are always kind of keeping our eyes open for a milk snake that needs a home, because they would make a great ambassador if they had been bred in captivity and had been bred to be a pet and calm. But our wild counterparts of those guys are really, really hard. It's just like with all of our ambassadors, we want to make sure their temperament is good, that they can be in captivity without being too stressed out. We wouldn't want to put them through that for their whole lives. I know. We're so excited. So I thought I saw a question. Oh gosh. here. Hi, Katie. I'm so glad you are watching. I hope Eli is with you. If you do have a snake near your house, that's great. It actually is helping to keep the mice under control in your area. Many of our snakes in our area are again, smaller. None of them are venomous if you're in Maine, which is great. There is a small population of timber rattlesnakes up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire, but they're actually very endangered in New Hampshire, so you'd be very unlikely to find them. So really the adage that snakes are more afraid of you than you are of them is very true in our area. And even in areas with rattlesnakes. I mean, I think I saw a statistic that about 99% of all snake bites that are reported were because someone was touching the snake or harassing the snake in some way. And that, you know, if you leave them to their own devices, they really don't want to attack you. They know they can't eat you. They're not going to try to hurt you. So if you do have a snake near your house, that's actually wonderful. It's helping to keep the rodent population down, you know, in your area and help to keep it from spreading diseases. Hi, Eli. Eli is my cousin. So hello. I'm so excited to have family watching. That's so exciting. Lori has a question about how often he eats. So Elvis will actually eat about once a week in the summer. He does go on a diet if he gets too chubby, like we talked about, and he might eat every other week. But then in the winter, these guys actually slow down completely and do not eat for months and months and months because it's just so cold. These guys are cold-blooded animals. They are reptiles. So they are using whatever energy is out there in the room to control all of their body processes. So if it's 50 degrees in a room before, you know, the heat kicks on, this guy is going to be 50 degrees inside of his body, and that is not going to allow him to process any sort of food. So he actually does not eat in the winter. We do like to keep him at around between like 75 and 95 degrees. That's where these guys like to be. He has an enclosure that has a gradient of heat in it. So one side is cooler, one side is warmer, so that we can allow him to choose where he would like to be. But they really can't get very cold, or they'll not be able to digest their food properly. They won't be able to do all the things they need to do. These guys are from California, so they do have some northern variations of them that live in pretty chilly places. But for the most part, they are living out west in like a desert atmosphere or habitat. So they are used to very hot days, and then they will go actually into burrows for very, very cold nights in the desert. So they can deal with quite a large variation in temperature. Let's see if we have any more questions. Can a snake get any kind of arthritis? So many joints. That's a great question. I'm actually not sure. I would assume yes, because of all those joints, but many of those sorts of congenital diseases are not often found in the wild if they don't get to be old enough, or if it's been evolved out of them. I would suspect that in captivity, or if in a captive bred sort of animal, they could pop back up again. But that's a great question. I actually don't know the answer to that. I always love on these when I am stumped and I get to go research something, so I get to go learn. But that's a really good question. I'm not sure. I can imagine with all, you're right, all of those joints, they would be susceptible to that autoimmune sort of issue of arthritis. So I'll show you guys here again up close. This is a snake skeleton. It's a little worse for wear, but you can see all of those tiny little bones. So basically a snake is one long backbone, and then all of those little backbones have ribs sticking off of them, and in between each of those ribs is a tiny little muscle. We call it an intercostal muscle, and that's what helps them to slither. So the constriction of those muscles is how they move their bodies. It's really cool. Let's see if we have any more questions. Eli asks, hi Eli, what food does Elvis eat? And Daniel says, hi Daniel. So we actually feed Elvis dead mice in captivity. In the wild, though, king snakes are known for being the king of the snakes. They will kill and eat other species of snakes, which we mentioned, but they are so strong and powerful they're able to constrict around other snakes and suffocate them, which is really a challenge considering that they're a reptile, and reptiles generally need less oxygen. So these guys have to be able to constrict really, really tightly and for a very long period of time. And in kind of tests of how much they can constrict, they've found that the king snake has the strongest constriction for its body size. So stronger than any other python out there. These guys can wrap around their prey tighter for their body size than any other snake species, and it's because they are going to be eating reptiles. They will also hunt for small rodents, and in captivity we do give him mice because it's easiest for us to come by, and he did used to eat live mice, but we have switched him to dead because he was not so great at killing the mice anymore. He was kind of klutzy about it, so we decided it would be safer to switch him to dead mice. And he will usually eat every week, if not every other week, when he's on a diet. So he does get put on a diet sometimes. All right. Liam would like to know, how often does he shed? That's actually a really interesting question too. It actually kind of goes along with the eating thing. So in the summer, when he's eating more frequently and his cells are turning over more frequently and he's processing more, he will actually shed more too. So he usually sheds probably around once a month in the summer. There are some periods where our snakes will shed a lot. We just, for example, Zipper, our corn snake that we have, just shed twice in the span of like 3 weeks. And it's because he's waking up for the spring and kind of getting all of those layers off. So that was interesting. We were not expecting him to shed so quickly, but usually about once a month. And they will actually get very cloudy looking. The layer between the scales and on the top and the scale on the bottom, those will separate out, and it makes him look like he's very dusty or kind of opaque. And he actually has a hard time seeing during that time, because remember, they have a scale that covers their eye, and that scale gets cloudy. So you can see here, this is a shed of Elvis's that we've preserved in tape. And you can see he has actually eyeball scales right there. Might be hard for you guys to see. But those will turn cloudy and opaque and kind of milky, and it makes it harder for him to see. So many times people with pet snakes will report that their snakes are a little more jumpy. If you ever see a snake out in the wild that looks that way, you don't want to try to mess with them. We don't want to try to mess with most snakes in the wild. But they will be more jumpy and likely to strike because they can't really see very well, and they're just worried about staying alive and get a little jumpy. So they will turn really milky white. And then what actually is interesting is their body will start to secrete this oily substance to help lubricate the scales off. And so it will look like he already shed, but he hasn't yet. So he'll kind of get almost normal looking again, and then he'll shed. So he'll look milky white for about like 3 days, and then he'll turn back to looking kind of normal for a day or so, and then he'll shed. So sometimes it tricks us. We're like, oh, he shed. Oh, no, he didn't shed. Usually that's what happens, is the oils from his skin make him look a little bit normal again. Daniel is asking, can all snakes see heat? He thought some could, but wasn't sure if all could. I have always heard that all can, but that is a great question to dive into. Reptile vision, I was looking into this yesterday, is generally not super well studied. So, I was looking into turtle vision yesterday, and they're like, a lot of the resources were like, they can see well. They can see well. That's all we know. So there is a lot of research to be done. They can see the heat spectrum, and I am not sure if it's true of all snakes, but I would imagine it's true of a lot of them if it's something that we're hearing across so many species. But that's a really great question. Hi, Jay. Hi, Jay. boyfriend Jay is watching. Good morning. This is Elvis. You've met Elvis before. Good morning, everybody. This is just turning into a Katie Broder family live stream. I'm so glad that you guys are here. We are so lucky to have such a wonderful avenue for getting in touch with you guys. We definitely miss being able to get out there in the community with you all, but we're really glad that you guys get to still interact with us and get to still see our beautiful ambassadors. Hi, buddy. Hello. So something that I did realize, though, is that these guys don't really have kind of ears. They have a hole that's covered by some scales, but they don't really have some ears. They don't really have very good hearing, but they can sense vibration, so they can sense quite a bit of vibration, but they don't have super obvious ears, and then they don't really smell through those nostrils that you see at the tip of his nose there. They are smelling with their tongue, which is really cool. And that Jacobson's organ that we talked about at the beginning. Let's see. Thank you guys so much for donating. Thank you so much, Ryan. That's so sweet. We're so grateful. We do have a donate button down there. Michelle, we will absolutely give Elvis here extra cuddles from you. Michelle is Elvis's best friend, so he definitely misses her. These guys in the wild will usually live, about 10 years, not very long. 10 to 15 is pretty average, but then they do take quite a bit of time to get to maturity. So they take actually two to 3 years to get to the point where they can have babies of their own, and then they will breed after that. But in captivity, they can live much longer in captivity. We actually have seen king snakes live up to 30 years old, which is true of a lot of our reptiles. Reptiles in captivity can live a very long life if they're taken care of well. Unfortunately, many times they're not, because they have pretty high needs. They're a little bit high maintenance. So these guys need the proper humidity, heat, diet, all of those things, and it's not as simple as just going and getting, some dog food from the pet store. So they can sometimes live shorter lifespans in captivity if they're not taken care of properly. But 20 to 30 years is a good lifespan for a king snake, and he's about 18, 19 years old. So he is up there, and he acts like an old man, but he will be with us for a long time. That's great. Good job. Thank you guys so much for donating. We really appreciate it. Elvis is one of our ambassadors that a lot of people freak out about because, a lot of folks are a little worried about snakes. They get a little bit nervous, but we are so glad to have snake ambassadors because they help to change so many hearts and minds about our reptiles in general, but also snakes. And especially here in Maine, where we don't have venomous snakes, they do a wonderful job of advocating for constrictors, helping people understand what a great job they're doing, keeping our rodent population under control. We actually had quite a few snake cases this past year. We had like 5 different snakes that were with us at once. Many of them, we still have a couple, many of them were brought into us because they came out of hibernation too early. There were some wonky days. But the fact that people are rescuing snakes is something that we don't usually see, which is great. That indicates to us that, minds might be changing more. And then we also had a couple that were injured. But usually these guys are injured because people are either intentionally hurting them because they don't understand how great they are, and they're worried about them hurting them or biting, or they are, run over by a lawnmower or caught by a cat or dog, something odd like that. But usually we'd only get like 1 or 2 snakes a year, and this past year we had a lot. So it's great that we're seeing more people bring them to us, because a lot of people just don't like them. And these guys are, great for, again, for rodent control, but also for maintaining a lot of diseases and keeping a lot of diseases that rodents can spread under control. So Lyme, for example, is spread by a lot of, white-footed mice with ticks and things like that. So these guys eating those mice actually helps to reduce a lot of those illnesses. So we're all connected. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so glad that you enjoyed Elvis here. He's so handsome, and he's gonna start eating soon. So he's very excited. He started waking up and moving around and getting excited that it's springtime. So thank you. Definitely stay tuned. We'll be back tomorrow with another one of our ambassadors for our morning meetings. And have a wonderful day. Get outside and enjoy the sunshine. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day.